Okay, so now that we know a little bit about our whiteboards and how to make them work, we want to make sure that our pen's batteries have been completely charged. Make sure that you have both the white USB cable and the black HDMI cable plugged into your dongle. So that'll give us the interactivity piece on our computer. Again, if that's not working, make sure that you have refreshed your programs. Make sure that you've restarted your computer recently. That should help out significantly. So the first thing I want to do is I can see that my pen is reacting to my board, and down here on the right, I have PC interactivity turned on. If PC interactivity is not turned on, I won't be able to interact. So what are some of the things that our whiteboard can do in our classroom? And we're going to be focusing on intermediate and middle right now. So some of these activities, there's a big gap between 4th and 8th grade. So some of these activities might be a little young for your students, and some of these activities might be a little advanced for your students, and that's completely fine. So this is not meant to say these are the things you must be doing. These are options and activities to give you an understanding of what your whiteboard can do and how you can integrate it into your classroom. So we're giving you specific examples to kind of help make that transition a little bit easier. So two of the programs that I'm going to be using are Lumio and Smart Notebook. They're actually the same program, just two different versions, and we'll talk about that in later videos. So the first place that I want to start is in Schoology. So now we have these interactive whiteboards. So what would be a benefit to our students? Well, first and foremost, they see technology as entertainment. Think of every way that they've ever interacted with a piece of technology. It's been in some form of social media or videos, YouTube, Minecraft, anything like that. It's just entertainment to them. So part of our job now is helping them to understand that in the world, there is entertainment and there is work. So we have work computers. We know what we can do on work computers, can't do on work computers. We have personal devices, which can do on personal devices and can't do on personal devices. We understand as adults when it's time to work and when it's time to play. Our students don't know that. They need to be explicitly taught. So part of that is making this a learning tool that is interactive with them. So now they start to understand that this is actually a part of my lesson and not just this thing that I get to play on, right? And we want to make sure as teachers that we're using our whiteboards for more than just a place to distribute information. This is not a worksheet that I can fill out while they fill out a different worksheet, and we call that technology. It should be engaging. So a good rule of thumb is every 2 to 3 slides, put something interactive in there. Now our students are starting to understand that, number one, they're paying closer attention to what we're doing because they're getting mini breaks. We have checks for understanding. And they're more than just, okay, write me a paragraph on this. It might be that, and we can include how they're using their devices to try to do that. All right, so first and foremost, in Schoology, maybe I want to put something in my lesson, such as a piece of interactive web media. It might look like this. So interactive web media, I might pull this up and say, all right, well, where do we think we are? What do you see? And someone might say, well, there's a rock over there. Yep, this weird looking rock over here on this side, but there's a lot of houses too, so we're clearly in a neighborhood. So I've started a discussion with my students, and they're seeing this. This is more than just a picture that I can put up, because I can actually take my students here, and we can interact. This is Google Maps, and I've just embedded it into my Schoology page. So now as we're walking around, what do you see? Well, I see some large rocks that look possibly like monuments, and I see a lot of people here. There's some houses, and then I quickly realized that I'm in Giza. I'm at the Sphinx. So I can take my students, we can walk around, and now we can do maybe a writing prompt or a class discussion. If we're reading about ancient Egypt, we can actually visit there in a real world context that makes sense to our students. So I might say, well, I expected the Sphinx to be bigger, but now looking in the background here, I see the Great Pyramids. They're pretty far away and they're huge. So now my mind is focused on what's happening, and I'm connecting what I'm learning to the interactive piece. Maybe one of the first things that I did when I got into interactive technology is I realized I've never been to Paris, but I was really curious what the Eiffel Tower looked like. So here's what it looks like to stand underneath the Eiffel Tower. Maybe we'll do a writing piece on that. Maybe we're doing research for a historical paper. You could take your students and discuss the lines. This is kind of like Disney World, where every movie I've ever seen they walk right in, they have a great time, they get right on the rides. But when I go there in person, it's a 2-hour ride to ride a roller coaster. So now we're connecting the real world aspect, not just a picture in a book. We could even take our students and walk them up the street. Let's take a little tour around Paris. Well, here's a neighborhood. What's different about this neighborhood from your neighborhood? Or what's the same? So we've got our students thinking now. What do you see? Imagine living here in this room right here and having that be the view out your window every day. Okay, maybe we'll write about it or we'll connect in some way. So we really want our students understanding the engagement pieces. So another program that we're going to be using is Smart Notebook. And with Smart Notebook, I've put a couple examples in here. Now, every one of these examples, either through Lumio, the web portal version, or Smart Notebook, we're going to put templates on the training page. So you can go in, if you see something you like, pull it up, copy it, paste it into your presentation. So you don't have to recreate the wheel. All of this is then editable. So this is one example of a choice board. This is a choice board on the solar system. I can put this right into my lesson, so my day just flows. And when I get to group time, here's your group choices. Put them up on the board, and now I've moved on. Now students can come up and they can say, well, I'd like to do that, and I'd like to do that. I have to do 2 of them. We're adding some more freedom to the students to get their engagement. This is one I borrowed off of another teacher, and let me blow that up just a little bit. We'll come up here, and let's make that, 150%. All right, so this is September 2022. This may apply to your classroom, may not. I borrowed this from a teacher who uses this for attendance. So as her students walk in the morning, they can grab their name on one of the apples and put it in the appropriate basket. This is an easy way to take a lunch count or to do choices, which students need, what size t-shirt, anything like that. And you might think it's a small thing, but now as our students are coming in and they're walking through the classroom, this is not just a piece where I'm going to sit here and tell them information and fill out worksheets. This is a part that they're interacting with. And that becomes just as interactive as all of the decorations and pieces and helpful hints that you put around your classroom or the timelines that you have around the top of your room. So now our students are making a connection with our technology, and in doing so, they're making a connection with our lessons because they're buying in to a conversation. And it's not just about me telling them, it's about them being a part of it. So if you wanted, maybe you're somebody who does jobs in your class, you can have this at the bottom of every day. The nice thing is, once you've created it, all you have to do is copy it and paste it into each day after that. So now every day you kind of come in, you copy, you paste. After this year, you just have to change the names and it'll be created for you. So when we get to time in our day to do our jobs, we have our jobs board here and it is completely editable. So if Jose is not here to be our calendar helper today, well, maybe now Alice is going to be our calendar helper for today. And then Alice goes back here for tomorrow, and we can edit this so we can keep giving students choices and different jobs. Here's one that would work with music. And you'd say, well, I don't understand how music, that's more of a specialist thing. How does that fit into my classroom? Well, very simply, these are infinite cloners. So as you see, I can pull as many as I want off, and they never disappear. So the nice part about that, and I pulled one up here already, is maybe I'm talking about 4 time, and I see 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm talking about 4 objects. Maybe I would make a writing tool, and I put a line here. Now this is a lesson on fractions. 4 out of 4 we know is 1 whole. Now I have 1 whole block. So I come back to my selector tool, and I would say, well, I have this here. How much of my block does that take up? Well, it takes up 2 out of 4. 2 out of 4, which is 1/2. Well, this is a half note. If you wanted to dig a little bit deeper, you might see something like this. This is a bit more advanced. So we're adding in rests. We're talking about 4 time, but dealing in eighth notes or whatever we're discussing. We've broken it down to a more specific option right now. I can even make staff lines on here and have students come up and put a small melody with notes and have it play for them. So if I assign different sounds to each note, there are a lot of possibilities here. Okay, so we've looked at Schoology, and we've looked at Smart Notebook. So Smart Notebook can be uploaded online into the web portal of what is known as Lumio. So anybody who's used Nearpod or Pear Deck in the past understands the benefits of something like that. It's engaging for our students. They really like it. But the best part is I can collect all the data. So as I'm collecting the data and my students are engaged, I put my presentation into here, and down here is my slides list. So this is very much like a PowerPoint. You can see I have all my slides here on the side. And as I move through my presentation, it has interactivity built into it. So my students would take this and they would sign in to my class. They go to hellosmart.com and enter your unique class ID, and that'll be your class ID forever. As long as you have a smart account, this will be your class ID. Mine is 711647, and I put hellosmart.com as a link in my Bitmoji classroom or right on my Schoology page. So every day students come in, they know they're going to log into our lesson, and then they don't have to log into 4 different places or now go over here, then go over here. I put everything into one. If it's maybe Connect Ed and we're doing an interactive reader, I might take screenshots and put it in here so that I can keep everything in one presentation. Just makes it nice for our students. They get in, they do their work, and then they can get back out. So a couple of these, one of the things you're going to notice is since I don't have any students, I have to it'll keep reminding me that I don't have students logged in. But as you get to this slide, you'll be given a start button. And as you start it, this is another option for a choice board. I can assign this to go out to every student's computer, and now they have a copy of the choice board they can choose to. They can interact with it. So just pick which ones they want, flip them around. Okay, I'm going to do this one, right to compare, or make connections from this text or another text. One example template of an interactive piece of medium. This is another fraction option. And all of these, you see it's asking me to sign in again. So all of these are available through Smart Notebook and through Lumio. So I'm dragging tiles for equivalent fractions. So maybe I have 1/2, and I need to understand what's 1/2. Well, that's a 1/4 and a 1/4. I have the ability to assign this into groups of students. I can assign it to pairs. I can assign it as a whole class activity and have different people work through it. Or I can assign it as an individual activity with about 2 clicks that will send it out to my students, and then they can understand, oh, I need to do this, I can practice it. So our manipulatives, instead of keeping all the tiny boxes around, our manipulatives can go right out to our students in a way that they can't lose them, we can't be disruptive, we can't forget to put them out. It's all right here and interactive. So this is now engaging our students more in a conversation rather than just being a passive person that something is presented to. Maybe you have a check for understanding. Down here, I go to the teacher handout. If I had students, you would see right in that black screen, all of my students that are logged in, and I get a green check anytime they've submitted work. So I can easily see all of my students. When I click on their names, I pull up their computer. I can see what they're working on, whether they've submitted it or not. Here, I'm check for understanding. Today I learned this, something tricky that I'll remember about it, and then they can come over here and grab one of these that best describes how they're feeling, and I can collect data that way. And I'll come down here and think, pair, share. This is a group activity, a pairing activity, so I can create my pairs of students and put it up so the student puts their name and their information, their partner puts the name and the information, and then they can go back through and respond to the information that our students have submitted. So again, these are infinite cloners down here. I can put as many as I want. This would be a great introduction for Collins writing, type 1, type 2. I could add something there. And if I have a whole class activity, I'll have an everyone can edit button up here. All I have to do when I'm presenting is turn it off, and now they can't work ahead or try to write stuff on the board to distract the class. I come up, and when I'm ready for them to submit, I just turn that button back on, which is really nice. Another feature in Lumio, and we will do Lumio training a little bit later, is when I have my students, their names will be listed here. I can see the work that they're doing, the work that they're submitting, and I can export all of that into an Excel sheet that I can then transfer to Schoology. Unfortunately, Lumio and Smart Notebook will not automatically transfer your grades into Schoology for you. but it will organize student scores alphabetically with their name and every question that they missed, what they answered, etc. Give me some class feedback. But just like Nearpod, say I'm in my classroom and I have my presentations running through Smart Notebook or through Lumio, and we have a snow day, or I have a student who's out quarantined. Okay, as soon as I'm done with my portion of the day and I want my students to work, I can come over here and turn this from teacher-led to student-led. Now, students have the ability to work through at their own pace. With Nearpod, you have two separate codes. Here, we just click that button and now students can work in their own pace. If I finish up my group work maybe, or I want all my students to come back to me, I just switch this back to teacher, and now all of their screens will show my presentation and exactly the slide and pace that I want them to. So it's helping with my classroom management as well. Moving on, here's an idea for, here is one idea for creating teams in an activity. And I'm going to make this a whole class whiteboard just because it's easier for us right now. I can see my class progress, and again, it's trying to get me to sign in because I don't have students. Problem or decision in our class, or maybe this is a story that we're working on. What do you think the character would do next? And what do you have in the text to support that? Students can write their answers down here, and then we can discuss pros and cons so they can give feedback. What they're doing on their devices is now showing up in the front of the room. And that may seem like a small thing, but it's really important because now they're part of a conversation. The work that they do matters. It's not just I put some stuff in my computer and now I wait there, I've answered my teacher. They're a part of a whole class conversation. And they get that good feeling having their answers pulled out and used as examples. Any student examples that I have on a whole class whiteboard, I can then blow up so they're the main answer, and then I can cycle through them. Some other options that we have here. This is a great opportunity when I have pre-made activities, and these little monsters are what Smart Notebook uses. They're pre-made activities. All I have to do is put in the information. So this is a sort, smallest to largest on fractions as words. So now I can take, say, 1/4 and put it in a box. If it's not correct, it will kick it out. So I have student practice that gives them automatic feedback that frees me up to work with individual students as needed. So maybe if they have a correct one, let's do 1/2, and I'll put it right here. If it's correct, they get a green circle. So again, they're getting feedback, I'm getting feedback, they get practice in something that they find honestly very enjoyable. Okay, so we're going to model the activity here. What we have is model activity at the top. So if I pull down, say 3/4, I find the corresponding pie piece, I bring it over here and connect it, it's 3/4. There I can blow it up so I can make sure that I can see it well. Click anywhere else to make it disappear. So this is a way to check my student work. This is actually a practice activity that is individualized, so they will get a score at the end. It will take their information on this particular activity and it will accept it even if it's incorrect. And then at the end, it will check their work and give them a score. Where might those scores go? Up here next to model activity, I have view progress. And when I click on that, I see a class overview that would give me all of my students and the progress they're making on this activity. I can see individual student progress, and I can get overall class data from that activity. Even if I don't need it right now, it's something that I will automatically collect that I can go back to later and pull that information out. So I can make small groups of students who maybe didn't do well, or I know students that I need to enrich because they did very well with the practice. Another example would be to share 3 things that you learned today. Here's where my students would appear. All of their names would be here, and I'm going to choose Teacher Handout. Share 3 things that you learned. I learned X, Y, and Z, and put things that I have questions about. Again, I can go back and check individual students' work, so this makes a nice exit slip. In the intermediate middle level, maybe you're a Wordle fan. You can create your own Wordle pieces here, where students can grab our letters, pull them up. These are all infinite cloners. Put them in. They have slashes to add to correct their vocabulary activity. Or maybe we're doing an interactive vocabulary word map. I can do it as pairs, I can do it as groups, I can even put in quizzes. The quizzes that I put in, I input the information and then I select the activity that I want. So maybe that's a game, or that is an actual response or a quiz. When I do that, I've taken my review tests, put them in as games. 2 clicks, I load up all of the questions, and I can send it out to my students. So I don't have to sit and edit things over and over and over again. I save the list of questions, and then my students can practice. They're playing a game. I'm collecting data and getting them to do their review. Maybe I take the same list of questions and I put that up later as an actual quiz that I'm going to grade. But you can see the game format pops right up and becomes interactive to them. If I had students rostered down here, I have divided into teams. So I can choose, I can do an auto roster where it'll automatically separate my students. Or I might say, that student doesn't belong in that group. I'm going to grab that student and move them down to this group. So I have that power as the teacher who's running this activity. Shout outs are great ways to have students respond right after we've done any kind of activity that we just want to get some quick feedback. We can do it as a whole class whiteboard. We can do it as pairs or individual students. Here's one, it's my birthday. What are some effects that can happen to me today? All student answers will start populating up here. And again, the work they're doing at their desk is showing up here. So that's connecting them more to the lesson. They feel engaged. Superhero Shop. This is the same idea, except I can make custom backgrounds. So when I edit this activity, I choose the activity shouted out, and then I can either choose pre-made templates, or I can choose a custom template and insert my own picture. If you could have any superpower, which would that be? And then as students are answering, it's going to show up on top of this picture in little boxes. Whole class whiteboards are great for being able to pull out information. And again, maybe I'd put a picture in here from our story that we're reading. What does this picture make you think of? What is something you see in this picture? Is there a question here? Well, why does this character look sad? Why do you think these two people are angry at each other? So we could use this in our second step lessons. We could use this with literacy. We can use it with math. We can use it with science. They're just a great way to engage the whole class. And as they're putting their information in, it's populating here on my board. And again, if I ever want to turn that off, I just come up here to edit and click off. Now all the student answers will still be here. If I have an answer I don't particularly like, maybe somebody was trying to be funny, I can actually erase that student's answer, turn it off, and they can't turn another answer. So you can see we have many different opportunities here. When we get into math, now we're talking a little bit more of a higher level. This is a great opportunity for Pan balanced equations because this is actually an interactive math piece and simulator that is automatically included with Lumio and Smart Notebook. So down here, I have my pieces for my equations. I have my balance or my scale up here. I can take snapshots. I can assign a value for X and Y. So maybe I have a small group activity where I turn my whiteboard on. I'm going to work with a group over here. I have a group working independently over here. And I have you four that are going to come up here and work through these equations. Tell me the value for X. So they come up and they say, all right, well, I'm going to grab an X and another X. So I have two X's. And down here, I'm going to put a 1. 2x plus 1. You see it automatically shows up here. 2x plus 1. I have negative numbers as well that I can work with. And over here, I'm going to put another x and a 1 and another 1. And now you can see that the greater than symbol turns to an equal symbol. My balance is set. I, as a student, can understand that. I have other options that I can add down in here. And up here, I have if x is 1 and y is 1, 2x plus 1 equals x plus 2. And I can see 2x plus 1 equals x plus 2. Well, what happens when I separate an x from here? Sorry, we'll take the x off. Well, then I have to take an x off of here. And we know, well, what happens when I take a 1 off of here? I take a 1 off of here. So now I know that x is equal to 1. So it's just an interactive way for your students to work. Maybe we have a piece of writing that our students want to edit. Again, I have infinite cloners up here. They can come down and mark the text as they see fit. This is a great way to pair up students and have them edit their own writing for Collins. So if we had a Collins 3, and I want them to edit each other's, we can set this up as a group activity. One person can input their work, the other person can edit it, and then they can have a discussion about it. And then this type of activity will work whether we're here in class or we're at home. So maybe your student is quarantined, maybe your student is sick, maybe we have a snow day. A lot of teachers have this feeling, well, now I have to be an in-person teacher and a virtual teacher. But if you plan your lessons using the tools available to you, your in-person and your virtual teaching is exactly the same. Because I would go through this in my class, and if a student is not with me when I'm done, I turn that to student, I have my link, write in Schoology as an assignment maybe, and they can complete that work. So this is 3 things that I learned handout, and something I had questions about. Just a few more examples here to go through, and these are not definitive examples. There we go. There's our whiteboard at the end. These are not definitive examples. These are not requirements for your classroom, but this is just a video to give you some ideas on how I can put things into my lessons. We looked at the interactive math piece. We looked at the literacy pieces. We looked at incorporating even music and specials. Sky is the limit when you're incorporating things like art and music. So as I'm teaching using Lumio or Smart Notebook or even interactive Schoology, my students are more engaged. They're not just sitting in their seats waiting to fill out worksheets, and that activates their brains to connect better with the text. So again, all of these templates, if they're too high for you, you don't need to use them. If they're too low for you, you don't need to use them. But templates will be available for you in our training portal.